Week 7 is here. The Colts back at home for really the only time in a 5-week stretch. Colts Dolphins, the Fox game. Kevin Kugler, I think, does a really good job on Big Ten Network. Daryl Johnston, that is your crew coming up on Sunday, 1 o'clock. And Eddie Garrison, I think it's fair to say this is like an important AFC potential wildcard game if you want to start looking at standings. I actually do want to just take an eye on that here at some point in the pod of
okay.
Maybe it was because we saw so many trades in the NFL yesterday, but two of them impacting teams the Colts will face next month, and the schedule certainly gets a lot tougher here coming up. Just kind of looking at a bit of where things stand from an AFC standpoint here as the midweek or mid-season point approaches. How are you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Doing well. Just want to preview the upcoming schedule for the Colts because, sometimes we get so focused on week-to-week stuff. And obviously the last 2 weekends on the road for the Colts in Jacksonville and then Tennessee, Miami at home this week, and then you go to Houston next week. You start in November in Minnesota, come home to a Buffalo team that just traded for Amari Cooper Wednesday afternoon. Then you go to New York. That is Sunday Night Football against the Jets, who just traded for Devontae Adams on Wednesday as well. And then this is the last game in terms of a very difficult stretch for the Colts, and that would be on Sunday, November 24th. The Indiana Pacers are also playing that night, too, for what it's worth, against the Detroit Lions. That is a 1 o'clock kick from Lucas Oil Stadium, and then it just gets easier the final 5 games after that. But let's just highlight. I just wanted to highlight the important stretch for the Colts coming up in these next 5 games. You talked about it being a potential wild card game for the Colts this week. And when you look at Miami, they're a team you got to win. It's a game you have to win nonetheless, just because of where they're at right now with the Tua situation and where you're sitting right now in terms of the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, I think I looked it up. If you rank the NFL right now 1-32 record-wise, I think that stretch, that 5-game stretch you just pointed to starting next week, 4 of the top 8 teams. The one that's not in the top 8 would be the Jets. And, I still don't think you just chalk that up as an outright W there. But I guess let's kind of get into it right there, Eddie. If you look at what is on the horizon, and let's start on Sunday. Because I do think Miami, the Titans, zero uneasy feelings. Very minimal uneasy feelings. I think Miami creates a few more uneasy feelings than Tennessee did.
Can I ask you for something? Because I was thinking about this earlier. When you look at Green Bay and how they played the Colts when the Colts lost without Jordan Love, that's kind of how I view this Miami game, because Green Bay used the field from sideline to sideline. They have a lot of guys that are quick, and then they beat you within the tackles. Now, the Dolphins won't really beat you between the tackles with Devon Achane. That's probably going to be more of Raheem Mostert, who sounds like he will play this weekend. So when you look at the Dolphins and you compare it to that Green Bay game, where does it stack up from the skill position standpoint?
I see similarities. I don't think Miami's defense is Green Bay's defense, but I think certainly from a speed, lateral, vertical threat, just much more of that is there. And tackling, of course, was an issue in that Green Bay game, and it will be of premium importance coming up on Sunday. If you go over and you just went over the teams, how about the wideouts you'll face in the next 6 games? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, Jameson Williams, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Did I say Garrett Wilson? I think I did. You don't face Nico Collins, but still, that's a hell of a list. And that's kind of what I want to get at here just initially before we get into the week and we get into the Dolphins and Twitter questions. If you segment out the AFC right now, and I know it's probably early to do this, but I think it's a reminder of just kind of how important these sorts of games are. Because right now, DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor, for example, they didn't practice today. At least they didn't look like they were. I would assume that means Buckner will not be back this week. Again, they've got to start that 21-day window at some point to get his return. They have not done that as we record this podcast. For Taylor, you would think he needs multiple days to return to the lineup. With him not going today, that means he's got to practice tomorrow and Friday. And if then, Taylor's status has always been just not as clear as other guys. So do you sit here and you think, hey, next week's game is the most important, right? It's Houston. If Vegas is right this week, that means the Colts win and the Texans lose at the Packers. Well, that means the Colts would go down to Houston next week, and if they somehow pull off that upset, they have the same exact record as Houston moving into the month of November, and they've split the head-to-head. So, there could be the optimistic glass half full that would look there. And then if you want to be maybe a little bit more realistic, you would say, no, I get what you're saying, but the division is still lofty. Houston is still Houston. They'll get Nico Collins back eventually, et cetera, et cetera. Let's focus on the wild card. If that's your thought, then Sunday is probably the more important of the two. And I bring that up in terms of Buckner and Taylor. Do you rush them back? Do you not? That aspect to it I think is interesting. But as far as the AFC is concerned, Eddie, let's tier them out. And let's slot Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Texans as division winners. Again, very premature to do that, but just for this exercise, let's do that. Let's cross off these teams, as in start making your homepage mock drafts. The Jags, the Titans, the Patriots, I think the 2-win Raiders after the trade of Devontae Adams, and the Browns are 1-5. I think we can cross them off as well. So if you look at that top tier and then the bottom 5, that leaves 7 teams for 3 wild card spots. Those 7 teams, Eddie, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Colts. You look at those 7 and you say 3 spots. Right now, it's hard for me to pick 3 teams and one of them not being the Colts. Some might say, hey, Cincinnati has got their act together. They're also in the toughest division in the AFC. Mm-hmm. That's a lot to ask for. The Jets are digging out of a 2-4 hole, and they're the Jets. Miami with Tua, how long is that actually going to last, and when is it going to happen again? And again, they're under 500. The Broncos, do you really trust Bo Nix for the rest of the season? I think the Chargers are going to be a playoff team, and I would say the Steelers are going to be a playoff team. But picking that final spot, it's... Yeah, I just think there is some, optimism to have. Now, certainly the Colts have got to handle their own business, and you can't continue. I mean, you can't lose to a quarterback that's been a part of that team for less than a month for the second time this season. You already did it once with Malik Willis. Should I call him Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley?
Yes, absolutely.
I should give him more credit than I am.
That's right. Exactly.
Apologies right
Respect,
there on that.
Kevin. Respect.
So the Cooper to the Bills, Adams to the Jets. Again, it was a reminder of the whiteout schedule that the Colts are about to face. But at the same time, the AFC, I think, has some opportunity, the back end of that wild card picture. That's why I think Sunday is so big. You've already had the head-to-head over Pittsburgh. Like right now, you want Pittsburgh to be in the wild card race. You want Baltimore to run away with that division. That's what you want because, again, you have the head-to-head with Pittsburgh. So I just thought before we got into the podcast itself, Eddie, I wanted to just kind of go over a little bit of the AFC picture as a whole. Anything to add on that before we get into some news items of the week?
You did say that the Colts are 7th right now in the playoff standings, right?
Yes. I mean, they are clinging to that final playoff spot, yeah. So that kind of adds to it as well. So, yeah.
Nothing else to add on my front. So let's transition now into some of the news items of the day. When it comes to the Indianapolis Colts, you already touched on it. DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor not practicing today for the Colts. Anthony Richardson was out there, but there was a long list of other players that did not practice for Indianapolis today. I think the expectation now, at least until Braden Smith is 100%, that he will miss Wednesday practices moving forward, and then he'll be a full participant on Thursday and a DNP on Friday. No EJ Speed out there today. That's a new injury for the Colts. Josh Downs did not practice. Michael Pittman Jr. did not practice. Ryan Kelly did not practice.
Dayo
Dangbo did not practice.
Yeah. He left the game briefly on Sunday, a hamstring there. Yeah, EJ Speed was watching but did not practice. I think you mentioned Downs. I assume you mentioned Pittman as well. So, probably some management stuff with a lot of those guys early in the week. Trey Sermon, knee injury. So, again, they signed another running back to their practice squad. So, they're dealing with some running back injuries here.
Savon Ahmed.
Yeah, so we'll see how that
former Miami Dolphin, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Played with the Dolphins for a while there. Hasn't been with them for a couple months now, but yeah, he's been with them for several years prior to that. So Let's start with Richardson. The expectation obviously is he will play. I know that news item kind of came out Monday afternoon. Certainly, my thoughts on Richardson and the need to play. I'm also curious, two things. Was Pittsburgh him showing growth? Or was it a quarter? Was it a blip on the radar? He was pretty bad against Green Bay and Chicago. Did he have fundamental changes in the positive direction against Pittsburgh? Or was that, again, just a little bit of the occasional quarter sample size he does show? I'm curious about that. The other thing is it should, even if Taylor's not back, this should ignite a run game. I mean, the yards per carry has been about 1.5 yards difference in the positive direction. I think it's 4.6 per carry when Richardson is starting versus 3.2 with Flacco. Now, again, Taylor has not started or played in the 2 Flacco starts, but still, what does that do for a run game that has been, especially was really stagnant against Tennessee? So, yeah, that news item, obviously earlier in the week. I was thinking this running back wise, is there a bigger drop off from starter to backup on the Colts roster at any position than running back?
Left guard to left guard?
Yeah, times I just kind of grouped the whole O-line together. But yeah, I hear you out on that.
Probably not.
I mean, Trey
Safety
Sermon had like 1.5 yards per carry the other night?
Safety?
Yeah. You could make an argument there. I would put running back high up on that list.
Bernie at left tackle? Ryman?
Yeah, we've yet to see Matt Gonzalez or Blake Freeland over there in an NFL game, so maybe that's probably a good thing that, or at least you haven't seen that here in 2024. I'm curious with Pittman again. Can you win one-on-one? I mean, that's the question now moving forward. Because if you go back and watch that Tennessee game, Eddie, Pittman only had 3 catches in that game, and 2 of them he was absolutely blanketed. He just made some great plays. So creating separation, winning one-on-one, is that something that's going to be there for him? That'll be something to keep an eye on. I know a lot of people have pointed to Will Levis getting the ball out quickly as, hey, the Colts pass rush, it's not as bad as it looks right now. It's still pretty wild to sit here and say they haven't had sacks in back-to-back weeks. It's the first time the franchise has gone through that drought in 6 years. It's only the third time it's happened in 16 years. If you look at it, the Colts have already had 3 games this season without a sack. I think last year, for the entire year, they only had 2 of those games. So I get that Levis got the ball out quick. He also was sacked 8 times in one game this season. So I think there's a happy medium there about finishing some plays that are certainly going to be critical to this team moving forward when you're playing the wide receivers that you're playing upcoming here. So I do think that is certainly something to keep an eye on there. And then again, I would just say, first off, another hat tip to Josh Downs. I don't know if we went over this enough on Monday. He had 4 punt returns of at least 14 yards each. The stats, I was talking with somebody at the Colts, like the stat history book that they go back to only dates back to 2000. They hadn't had a player in franchise history do that since 2000. So, I mean, that could have been a franchise record for Downs. I mean, think about that. In a close one-score game, he gives you a 1.5 downs to 2 first downs on 4 punt returns. I mean, again, that's not something that you typically see at all there. So those are a couple of news items to note. I don't think I'm missing anything else of stuff that I definitely wanted to go over before we get into Twitter questions and then Dolphins stuff. So unless you've got anything else to add, Eddie, let's transition.
The Miami Dolphins are 2-3. They are coming off their bye week. They opened the season with a win over the Jags. Well, they were gifted a win, I probably should say. If Travis Etienne doesn't fumble near the goal line, Jacksonville probably goes on to win that game. They've lost to Buffalo, Seattle, Tennessee, and their win before the bye week was against the New England Patriots, and that was an ugly one, 15-10. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa is not active this week. This is his 4th game on injured reserve, so he will not play. The highlighted receivers, everybody knows if you play fantasy football, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Devon Achane is coming off of a concussion, so That will be something to monitor if he has cleared protocol. Jalen Wright is another running back that will be featured. Raheem Mostert, the Purdue graduate, finally active. He's played in 2 games. Has not looked great. 3.6 yards per carry, 89 yards on 25 attempts. And this defense for Miami is severely banged up when it comes to the edge rushers. I don't think they have a single edge rusher that started the year that is active currently that has a sack. Jalen Phillips is out for the season. He injured his knee. Calais Campbell up front is probably their biggest name. Emmanuel Ogbah is a good linebacker, so is Jordan Brooks. But I think when you look at Miami's defense, it's certainly the secondary that stands out the most.
Yeah, they definitely have some names in that back end. We'll see about Javon Holland. I know some thoughts about him playing through a hand injury, maybe cast it up. I think there was some, is Emmanuel Ogbah ready or not? You talk about the edge rusher. He definitely has been one that's had some sacks this season. I think there's been a little bit of confusion there on how healthy he is. But yeah, losing Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb has been a big storyline as well, injury-wise for Miami. But offensively, again, they have some potency. And I think Mike McDaniels is a pretty respected schematic guy. That's why it's so shocking to see them dead last in the NFL in points scored at 12 per game. I had to laugh today. Mike McDaniels described Gus Bradley's unit as a thoroughly vibrant defense. Like, I have no idea what the hell that means. That nothing says, like, I'm facing a bad unit, but I can't say that. So let me describe them in a manner that hopefully people just will think I'm smart and we can just move on to the next topic. And so I think that's what McDaniels was doing. But again, this one just worries me a little bit more than Tennessee. Tennessee didn't really worry me. Now, I mean, Stu Huntley, it's like, okay, Kevin, why are you worried? He started 11 games in his career, and he's only thrown for more than 200 yards in 2 of them. I think he's more of a willing runner and a little bit more of a dual threat guy than Levis can make plays, but I think a lot of that just comes off of scramble action there. And, I think they're getting a little healthier off the bye. Like, A-Chain, it looks like, is going to progress through concussion protocol. And, in these one-score, low-scoring games, you're one missed tackle on Tyreek Hill from that possibly being the difference in the game.
Yep.
Or one coverage bust. And we have seen missed tackles and coverage bust from this team. So I think that's where my worry level is definitely higher than it was last week. I think if you listen to last week's podcast, I was pretty confident in Colts' victory. This week, I'm a little bit more up in the air on that. So unless you got anything else on the Miami front, Eddie, let's go ahead and hop into Twitter questions.
Let's do it. We will start with Connor. Hi, KB. You mentioned in last week's pod that Steichen had his first preference in Gus Bradley's firing. I think Gus's future depends on how aggravating Jim Irsay's Twitter feed is after the Titans. Do you think the Colts go with a DC replacement with an aggressive style, given the priority now is maximizing Anthony Richardson's game time?
Well, I guess let me clarify my words. I say he should be the one that has first preference in that firing. I don't know that for sure. I would hope. But still, again, Chris Ballard has certainly had a lot of control and a lot of say on defensive personnel, of course, but also the defensive coaches that have been hired there as the coordinators. So what style does Shane like? Again, I weirdly think Shane prefers the style of hey, we're going to keep everything in front of us. And I think he's a little bit content with not being maybe as exotic, disguising, multiple week-to-week sort of schematically focused like he is offensively, as some defensive coordinators are, the Brian Flores of the world. Now, I think, and he mentioned this, I thought, last week about, you need to affect the quarterback a little bit more with 4 and 5 and 6 man pressures and things like that. And I did think the Colts actually blitzed a little bit more last week than they usually do. So I don't know if you would see something majorly different defensively from a style standpoint, Connor, to answer the question. I still think you can find a happy medium that is a little bit more, but still kind of appeases the, hey, don't allow big plays. Because I think that is Shane's biggest MO there. So, again, this is why I've kind of always scratched my head a little bit at the philosophical mindset. And I get offense and defensive football is different. But to me, aggression, creating advantages with X's and O's and scheme, I would think that would be more of a consistent calling card that you would want no matter the side of the ball. But it doesn't seem like Shane's mindset offensively is necessarily what he wants to mirror defensively.
Yeah, when you look at Gus Bradley, compared to like Robert Saleh and some of these other D coordinators, he's very mellow, very even keel. Some of these other guys are, more of the psychos that are, all over on the sideline jumping and hooting and hollering. And with Gus, funny. It's just very non-vibrant.
It's funny you mention that because when Gus hired Robert Saleh, he liked Robert Saleh because he was a different personality. Same thing with Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni. Mm-hmm. Certainly we're seeing the Sirianni personality on full display. We saw it on full display inside of Lucas Oil Stadium a couple years ago after a win. So that's oftentimes what coaches want the opposite of. I think Bob Cooter is a little bit more of that than Shane at times. But I also think Shane has some of that energy that maybe he just doesn't show as much in a public setting there. So certainly this will be a storyline that I don't think is going anywhere.
Cody wants to know if Samuel Womack continues to play well, then how do you feel about his future at the quarterback position? Would you still heavily invest in it this upcoming offseason, or are there more pressing needs you would look at?
Well, first off, shout out to Samuel Womack. I mean, and a very nice find by Chris Ballard and that staff at roster cutdowns. In San Francisco, who's primarily a slot guy, here he's been asked to play a little bit more outside. And I remember he was adamant at first media session. He's like, oh, I can play both. And, it's like, all right, that's some corner swagger that you like. And so far, he's backed it up. So great job. I mean, to me, what he lacks in maybe ideal Colts cornerback length, he makes up for in the competitive nature of attacking the ball and the moment of truce. And, it's a reminder of not everybody's got to be the 6'1" long corner to succeed. Sometimes it is instincts and it is anticipation. And I think Womack has shown a great display of that. Now, having said that, and nothing against Womack, but in no way, shape, or form would this lessen my corner need. First off, Juju Brents has proven that the health question is going nowhere. Kenny
I was about to say he's proven nothing.
Right. Well, in a way, the Juju Brents story is kind of like the Anthony Richardson story of like they still need to prove ability and availability.
Yeah.
And that's where you're at. Now, Kenny Moore turns 30 next year. I don't think you can lose sight of that. Obviously, he's had a couple of nicks and bruises too. You cut both your draft picks at corner from this past year, so I'm not lessening the need. Again, very nice from Womack, but I still look at that position as one that matters a whole lot, and a lot of guys get banged up there, and corner would still be very close to the top of the list in terms of 2025 needs.
Kevin Niles questions if Anthony Richardson is the right kind of quarterback for Shane Steichen. Not is AR good or ready, but is he the right QB type? Steichen seems perfectly content rolling with the veteran pocket passer type. I know it seemed like a perfect fit with what he did with Jalen Hurts, but seeing how he operates now, I'm not so sure.
Well, Steichen had a huge say in Richardson being drafted 4, and I get at that point, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud were off the board, but I think Niles, this is kind of the type of quarterback you almost have to have now moving forward. Maybe not to the degree of Richardson, but the dual threat capability. I mean, Eddie, how many college quarterbacks do you watch that are truly stationary? IU's got one of them.
Cam Ward at Miami?
Yeah, but not like Curtis Rourke stationary or Phillip Rivers stationary, right. Or, I'm trying to think of, Burrow or Herbert. I'm trying to think of some of the guys in today's world that are that. So, again, I've tried to make this analogy before in describing the style of quarterback that I think I would want. And it is I'm good because I can throw the football. But if you don't spy me and you sleep on these legs can hurt you. And that's, you know who the ideal stylistic quarterback is like that?
Mr. Mahomes.
Well, certainly Mahomes, but C.J. Stroud, I think.
Yeah.
Just in terms of again, I've done the percentages, and I hope this explains it, but I'm an 80% thrower, but I've got the 20% leg ability that can impact a game. Mm-hmm. 4 out of 5 plays, it's going to be my right arm or my left arm.
Rodgers.
But Rodgers, yeah. I mean, he's certainly been that throughout his career. Like Mahomes, Stroud, I think Jordan Love fits that category as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
When you get into the Jaden Daniels of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurts, and all of their different abilities, they are very accomplished quarterbacks, but they also teeter a little bit on the injury thing. and they teeter on the hits. Stafford is a guy that obviously has had a long career, but again, I think in an ideal world moving forward, you would have a little bit of that element.
Brock Purdy,
yeah.
falls into that Stroud-Rodgers category.
Yeah. So again, I think that is what would help him out. It's just, again, I think I've been pretty clear to people of this podcast that have listened of like why I'm so adamant on like Richardson just needs reps. It's wild to think about it in this light, Eddie. Anthony Richardson has started and finished 4 of 23 games. Okay. If he plays and finishes every game the rest of the year, that would make 4 become 15. 15 such games.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I told you right now, would you bet on him starting and finishing every game the rest of the year, you would probably say no.
Correct.
C.J. Stroud has already started and finished 17 games in his career. And 2 of those are playoff games.
He missed, 2 games last year because of a concussion?
Yeah, I want to say like late December, right?
Yeah,
mid-December, something like that. So it's just crazy. I mean, think about that. If Richardson does what I would think a lot of people would label as a miracle if he started and finished 11 straight games to end the year.
Yeah.
That would just reach C.J. Stroud's mark here on October 16th. And then let's look at their college careers. Stroud did what at Ohio State and did it for how long? And then Richardson at Florida. Like, this is where it just gets into he's got to play. But again, having said all that, for those out there that are questioning why the Colts should continue to play Richardson, go back and look at Josh Allen's rookie season. If you want to look at games, and Josh Allen missed some time. He actually missed the Colts game. The Colts beat the Bills at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think it was Derek Anderson that got the start. Allen missed 4 games due to injury that year. But if you look at some of those games, Eddie, I mean, we're talking games under 50%. Several games under 50%. We're talking more interceptions than touchdowns. So again, that's why you play him to see if this continues. Now, can you grow? Can you change? Can you make the trade for Diggs? And all of a sudden you ignite Josh Allen into now the player that he has become. And obviously his durability is probably a different conversation for a different day. But I'm just reminded of all of that. Watching Monday Night Football was a reminder of that with Allen. And then obviously with Richardson, excuse me. It's just the availability and the lack of it is just so shocking when you compare it to, the other quarterback in the division right now. That is certainly the class of the young QBs in the entire league.
Let's keep the train on quarterback moving here. Jason states, in addition to allocating outweighted salary into interior defensive lineman, guard, and linebacker, it appears the Colts have relegated themselves to include backup quarterback as a position that will also need to be outweighted for years to come relative to the rest of the league due to Anthony Richardson's injury history. Your thoughts?
Good thought. I would argue many teams should invest there with these types of quarterbacks. Right now, if you're Washington moving forward, you should probably do that. If you are, certainly if all of a sudden Levis ever figured it out, which is probably laughable to even say, again, he's so reckless as a runner, I would say Tennessee would fall into that boat. Obviously Flacco turns 40 in January. So, the urgency obviously goes up for this franchise. But again, Jason, I would argue, this is not and again, I say this league-wide, the days of the Manning, Favre, Rivers, et cetera, Brady, et cetera, of don't worry about backup quarterback that much. I'm no longer in that camp. I think I used to kind of be in that camp, but I think I said it to you back during the draft process, Eddie, especially with Richardson, I would draft a quarterback every year on day 3. And just see what happens. Trust, quarterback coaches and development, and who the hell knows?
Got to get a guy that's played a lot of games, because if you look at the way that it's...
I think that's what you'd have in the backup. But then 3 and 4, I think, matter. I'd care. The Colts are carrying 3 on their 53, of course, right now. I would be carrying 1 on the practice squad as well. So, yeah, I think I understand where Jason's coming from. And, yes, positional value and the money allocated by the Colts I've questioned many times under Chris Ballard. But in terms of the backup quarterback investment, no. I think I think it's a smart operation in how they're rolling. And I would say that for pretty much, I think, most NFL teams. Frankly, I laughed at Green Bay earlier this year, and it worked. I mean, they won both starts with Malik Willis, but I think that's playing with fire.
Anthony Richardson has been out for 2 weeks now for an injury that, by all accounts in interviews after the fact, they felt like he could have played through the week it happened. Brett asks, are the Colts just wildly bad at assessing injuries? It feels like a few times each year there are several misdiagnoses that lead to much longer than projected absences. I don't feel it's nearly as prevalent on other teams.
Certainly this form of question is one that we've gotten before. It's impossible for me to label a medical staff as misdiagnosing injuries. Look at Derek Carr right now. The oblique injuries taking
missing
him out.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Is it 3? I guess they're playing tomorrow night, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just we had the injury expert Will Carroll on our show on Tuesday, Eddie, and that was when it had transitioned from hip to oblique. And I'm talking the Tuesday right after Richardson suffered the injury.
Yeah.
And he was very quick to point out, guys, oblique is different than a hip. That absence is, and I think you see this in baseball a lot.
Yes,
guys
with
run,
pitchers.
Yeah, guys run through first base, and it's like, oh my gosh, now the rotational. And Richardson's talked about that. It's the rotational throwing that can kind of lead to more of an absence.
Happens with hitters too.
Sure. Now I will add this. I thought it was weird that he dressed on Sunday, didn't play. I get that you don't go to your third quarterback very often, but, I mean, hell, just ask San Francisco. You were willing to put him into an NFL football game.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put him into an NFL football game, I tend to think he should suit up. Those are my thoughts. And Richardson said it today. He's like, I wasn't 100% for Green Bay. I wasn't 100% for Chicago. Look at the hits he took against Houston week 1.
Yeah.
You think all of a sudden he just magically was back to 100%, 6 days later? No. So, again, I thought that was odd that they didn't put him out there. They were willing to dress him in the game. Flacco gets rolled up on and Ellinger gets smoked in the head. Richardson's in the game. So, that to me was a bit confusing.
Earlier in the pod, you brought up Josh Downs and just how
has he been the best player on the football team this year?
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there. Him or Pierce, one of the two, right?
Downs already has more catches than Pittman, and he has 2 more catches than Pittman, and he's played 2 less games.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Earlier, you highlighted just how important he was in the punt return game last week for the Colts in their win against Tennessee. That's where what Tyler is asking you about here. What are your thoughts on Downs being at punt return? With as valuable as he is on the Colts offense, is it worth having him at that position and risking injury? Just not sure if the risk is worth it. Anthony Gold, anyone? Thanks, as always.
Tyler, it's funny. I am probably in the camp of it's a hair risky, but boy, you watch Sunday. I don't think it's hyperbole to say if Anthony Gold is returning punts on Sunday, the Colts lose the game. Maybe I'm putting too much stock into Josh Downs' 4 punt returns for 60-some yards.
Yeah.
But, that can be the difference in a drive. That's a great drive start. I think it's such an igniter, too, of, your call sheet from the 12-yard line might look different than your call sheet from the 32-yard line. If you got one negative play from the 12, now you're thinking, hey, we need to give Rigo, shout out to Rigo, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
That's right.
Outstanding on that. It's a bad week for special teams when the punter gets a special, we didn't have a field goal kicker make
League-wide.
4 or something like that. But nonetheless, very deserving for Rigo on that end. So one thing I like about Downs is sometimes when you put the explosive guy back there or that sort of guy, he has bad ball security. I don't feel that way about Downs. Frankly, I probably trust his ball security more than pretty much anybody else. But there is an element to Tyler's question of isn't this kind of why you drafted Anthony Gould? If Gould does not become a return man for you, it's probably going to be a missed draft pick. And that's just a little unfortunate. So I think at some point you would like to see that happen.
He's pretty much been relegated ever since the kickoff.
Right, but again, to me, that's just more on coaching than anything. I thought that was a very niche thing that happened, and you want him worried about ball security and those sorts of things, not of should I kneel it or not here? That to me is not what he should be necessarily. He shouldn't have that innate thought in his head. I think that's a lot to expect out of him. So With Downs, again, he wasn't out there today. He was out there, but not practicing today. He wasn't even doing field work last week. He did nothing on Wednesday, Thursday field work, and then practiced Friday, and I think he played a season high in snaps. So I am curious, I guess, moving forward especially if you're limiting Pittman, again, obviously that would probably mean more Doolin and more A.D. Mitchell, but it's a hair risky to answer the question. But, man, he was key on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. You mean he's been key the last 2 weeks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
You got your listening ears on?
I do.
Are you attentively listening?
Okay.
Because
it's a lock-in question?
Yeah, this is I need you to sit up, edge of the seat, like you're watching Notre Dame with the football.
Ooh, third down?
Riley Leonard.
Come on. Georgia
down.
Tech this weekend, baby.
Yeah. In order...
Notre Dame, the only team in college football right now that's beaten a top 15 team on the road.
Really?
If you look at the rankings right now, top 15 team.
Of the current top 15 teams?
Of the current top 15.
Okay.
If you take those teams and you look at if they've lost, where that game was, Notre Dame, the only one of the top 15 road one.
Anyway, Chris says in order of 1 to 5, what would be the best for the Colts franchise moving forward, not just this season? A, Anthony Richardson starts and plays every remaining game of this season. B, Jonathan Taylor starts and plays every remaining game this season. C, Chris Ballard resigns because he'll never be fired sometime between now and February. D, Gus Bradley resigns because he'll never be fired before Halloween. And E, C.J. Stroud retires at the end of the season.
Oh, Chris, God bless you. Aren't these questions just exceptional?
Yes.
All right, Eddie, you're going to have to give them to me one more time here, but maybe in snippet version. And just to be clear here, Chris said for the franchise moving forward, right? We aren't living in the 2024 bubble?
Correct. You rank them 1 to 5.
Okay.
Richardson starts and plays every game.
Got it.
Taylor starts and plays every game.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Ballard leaves. Gus Bradley leaves. C.J. Stroud retires.
Wow. Stroud retires would be the best thing for the Colts. You imagine if he just did. How wild would that be?
That would be so wild.
Yeah, 2 years in, I'm good. I'll go Richardson starts and plays every remaining game this season. Because, again, that one, you would just be getting answers. They might not be the answers you want, but at least you'd be getting some answers on that. I'm torn on Gus Bradley or Chris Ballard for next. I Gus Bradley resigns because he'll never be fired. Yeah, Chris, that one made me chuckle a little bit. I guess I'd go Bradley next. Maybe your defense just needs kind of a hard reset. Chris Ballard resigns because he'll never be fired. Okay, yeah, that one made me chuckle as well. I guess I'd go Ballard then, and it's pretty obvious to me Taylor would be last on the list. Right?
I flipped Taylor and Ballard personally.
Yeah, but again, like Taylor starting and playing every game the rest of this season, I mean, obviously that would be great for 2024, but like, what does that really mean for you moving forward? I don't know. Weirdly, I wrote in the notebook today, I want to say Taylor is like, let me look it up. I would keep Taylor last. I feel pretty firm in that stance. Probably the Bradley Ballard is where I would have some debate there. So Taylor has played 25 games in the last 3 years, and he's missed 15. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. We got what? How many did he miss at the start of last season?
Missed those first 4, right?
Yeah, and then he had the ankle injury in
the thumb last year, and then obviously the ankle this year. So.
And then at the end of would that have been the 22 season?
Yeah, is when he battled the high ankle. That was the start and stop year.
Yeah.
And then needed surgery in January, and then the contract situation, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I'm going Stroud retire. Can you imagine? We should have a parade in Indy, frankly, if that happens.
I don't know if I would have a parade or if I'd cry. One of the two.
I do like watching him play football. I will say that. But, yeah, I mean, they should hang a banner inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, frankly, for that one. Stroud, Richardson, Bradley, then Ballard. I could coin flip that one, and then Taylor. What a question from Chris.
Yeah, I had Ballard and Taylor flip just because I think if Ballard left, he would be scooped up immediately. Still, personally, I think he's that respected.
Yeah, it is funny how the GM, I don't think you see as many GM recyclings as you see coaches recycled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a way, isn't it weird if you just look at the win-loss record that Ryan Grigson hasn't even gotten, has he even gotten an interview for a GM opening?
I don't think so, because I don't think he really had a track record of finding talent like Chris does.
Well, yeah, and again, this is all what it comes back to. How do you view it? What all is on the GM's plate? Is it strictly drafting? Is it more than that? Is it roster building? Is it wins, losses? Is it how you hire coaches?
Because I sit in the camp, it's like, you look at how the defense has been so up and down. I don't know if it's these guys regressing. I find it very hard to imagine these guys regress that fast from last year to this year. Sure, you have health that plays into it as well, but I mean, you talked about it with, and he was there last week or the week before maybe, about how Dallas was missing so many players, and it felt like they still guys had to step up and make plays because of Mike Zimmer and the scheme that they have. And then you look at Minnesota, they go from one of the worst defenses to one of the best defenses this season because of scheme. So to me, I don't know if it's the talent on the Colts defense that is the reason why they've struggled, or maybe it's the scheme that they're playing under that has allowed them to struggle.
No, that is a fair point. Eddie Garrison, I'm putting you on the spot. Colts favored by 3.5, Week 7. Colts and Dolphins inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
I just thought of something. We teased it on Monday's pod before we do the prediction. Do we want to throw Michael Pittman Jr. in here right here at the end?
Yeah, throw him in here at the end. Sorry about that. Yes, Michael Pittman Jr. Nothing like waiting, 30 minutes in the podcast to mention it. Michael Pittman Jr. on with us on Monday. That's the morning show here, the wake-up call, myself and Andy Sweeney. We'll tag that here at the end. Boy, what a play. What an effort from our next guest. I said to him at training camp back a few months ago, I think he took it as a compliment. I go, Michael Pittman Jr., there is no USC pretty boy and how he plays the game of football, and I think you saw that play out on Sunday. He is joining us right now. Michael Pittman Jr., good Monday morning to you, sir. How are you?
Great. Thank you, guys.
First off, I got to start here. Did I just see this? The first batch of the Pittman Farms honey has been jarred up. I mean, that's the big news on this Monday morning.
Yes. So I am a very novice beekeeper, and we actually harvested some of our honey about last week, and we finally got it jarred.
Michael Pittman Jr. is with us here on this Monday morning. Okay, Pitt, let's go back to last week. When did things start to change for you? And all right, this back injury we can put on the back burner for now. I'm going to gut it out here moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was we just had to get all of the information, and I feel like we got everything done around midday Thursday, and then I kind of took that day. I talked to some more people that I trust, and really by the end of Thursday, I kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to try.
Is this a conversation that will continue to be weekly, or do you think you've gotten through that aspect of it?
No, I mean, I think it's going to be a week-to-week thing, and we're going to see how it goes, and just take each day how it goes, and we're just going to rely on our medical staff and just try to keep going the right way.
Michael Pittman Jr. joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Wake up call on the Fan on this Reaction Monday. Think you were quoted after the game, Pitt. You had about an hour meeting, an hour conversation with your dad about getting back out there and toughing through it and playing. What was that conversation like with Dad when you guys were talking about whether you should play or not?
Yeah, so I mean, he's played through a lot. I mean, being a running back in those days, when they really ran it a lot, he's had to deal with a number of things that I think are worse than what I've ever had to. So, I just really asked him what he would do, and he basically just told me that if he thought that I could go out there and still win routes, then just go ahead and play. And I still feel like that, and so I just made the choice to play.
So winning that route there, 3rd and goal, when did it kind of hit you that Flacco was going to give you a shot to climb the ladder and make a play?
Well, as soon as I seen how they came out, like they went 0, so I knew that it was there, and I was really hoping that he would throw it. So
it seems like he is a willing, like, I'm going to let my pass catchers have a chance at it. Like some quarterbacks, I don't know. It's not like you were wide open by any means on that play. They'd be hesitant to even attempt that ball in the end zone of a one-score game. Do you feel like Joe gives you those opportunities to try and win a 50-50 chance?
Absolutely. And that's just like with his experience, like for him, like that's not a heavy moment, you know what I'm saying? Like he's been in that situation many, many times. So like for him, that's just another play versus like he doesn't feel like, oh, like I can't mess this up, because that's when guys start overthinking, and then sometimes it doesn't go the right way.
I know it's a simple question. And Michael Pittman Jr. with us on the Payless Liquors hotline, but it's a win or loss league. If you guys lose that game, the conversation this week, it's not going to be good. How important was it to go get that win yesterday?
Absolutely. I mean, 1, it gets us back to 500, and then 2, it counts for 2 because it's a AFC South game. So it just gets us back on track. We're all. We don't really look at other people, but we know what Houston's doing, and we know that if we want to have a shot, we have to catch up.
The Colts get their first divisional win, first road win of the season. Not only did Michael Pittman Jr. have the game-winning touchdown, but also helped ice it there in the final couple of minutes. You mentioned conversations with your father this past week. What, if any, were your conversations with Reggie Wayne about fighting through this?
Yeah, I mean, me and Reg really didn't talk too much about it. It was kind of just they kind of just left it up to me, and they're like, do whatever you feel is best. Nobody is expecting you to play, and they just kind of left it there.
What percentage do you think you were playing at yesterday?
Whenever I'm out there, it's always 100%.
I like that answer. It would have been different if you would have given a 71.5%. That's what he was yesterday.
God, it sounds like my math grade.
Yeah, Michael Pittman Jr. with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. And what can you say about the defense? 7 possessions in total between the two teams in the final 7 minutes. Your defense locked things up after you scored that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't really think that I scored the game-winning touchdown. I mean, I think that I did the go-ahead touchdown, but I really think our defense is really what won us this game. I mean, they just did. I mean, they just dominated. Really, I mean, if you look at their stat line, there was some big plays, but I mean, NFL ball, there's going to be some big plays. There's a lot of good players. So just credit to the defense for sticking it out.
I want to go back real quick. I know a lot's going to be asked this week, and we're peppering you with, how you're feeling and injury questions and everything else. When you see earlier in the week, Adam Schefter and others report that you're out multiple weeks and that injured reserve, that IR is definitely on the table. Does that bother you as a player when that comes out?
No. For me, that didn't take into account anything that I decided to do. I definitely saw it, and people were asking me about it and that sort of thing. But it didn't add fuel for me.
Gotcha.
So because we did consider it, and it was out there. It's just not this week. So,
can you, Michael Pittman Jr. is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. We appreciate him joining us here on this Monday morning. Just a couple minutes left with the Colts wideout. Could you maybe explain for our audience what you're going through to give it a go week in and week out? I don't think fans fully realize maybe what you are doing to just play, let alone show what you did yesterday.
Well, I'll probably start off first. People are giving me way too much credit. Everybody has pain right now. There's not any single NFL starter that's playing pain-free. But really, it's just a credit to our staff. Aaron, you got Brian, Dre, Mac, Steven, and Kyle, and Hammer. They all just do a really good job of drawing up a plan for me that that kind of like allows me to get everything that I need like in the week, and just gets me ready to play, because I didn't really practice that much, but I felt good on Sunday. So we're just going to be building off of that plan.
I think if you just watch the last 3 weeks, the answer is probably obvious, but could you explain what a healthy Josh Downs means to your offense?
Absolutely. I mean, like you see Josh, I mean, he's been dominating on third down, so he's been making like big plays, and that's something that we all knew that he was going to do coming in, and like we're just building off of that, and I think Josh is going to be great here.
Yeah, Downs has been pretty good. You've been pretty good too, man. Michael Pittman Jr. with us, Payless Liquors Hotline. Fill in the blank here. Joe Flacco is what? Fill in the blank. What's Joe Flacco? Come on.
Joe Flacco is, I'm trying to think of a more sophisticated word than just saying cool. Joe Flacco is, darn it.
We're getting the USC education on full display here, Pitt.
Well, like just because like another word that came to my head was like mature, but like that's like another way of calling him old. So like I didn't want to do that.
Well, you're going to be 40 in 2 months.
You can say cool. I mean, that's what people have called him.
Let's say he's clutch. Joe Flacco's
okay.
clutch.
I thought the description earlier, not a heavy moment for Flacco, was spot on, and just his ability to thrive in those moments. Well, Pitt, thank you for the time on this Monday morning. Congrats on the win. Again, I know you don't want to give a lot of credit to yourself, but you just listened to Shane Sykin, you listened to Joe Flacco describe your toughness. It speaks for itself. So congrats on that. Hope the back treats you well the rest of the season, and most importantly, maybe, good luck with the honey.
Thank you, guys.
All right, now time for predictions. Man, I keep going back and forth on this just because I feel like it's a game where Miami's going to be really prepared. They're coming off the bye week. I think the Colts defense is going to
their games post-bye with McDaniels. I don't know if that matters at all. But.
I don't know. I need a bigger sample size.
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I feel like the Colts will have trouble with that speed for the Dolphins. If they can tackle, great. If they can't, then oh boy. I was still back the Colts here. I've got it very, very close. I've got Colts 23, Miami 16.
I think that's what I had last week. Colts 23-16 over Titans. I've got a 5-1 record. I need to keep this winning streak going here for the Colts. Boy, I'm torn, dude. I am torn. I just think I don't know if Huntley can make enough plays, and I don't think Miami's front seven is great. So I'm going to go Colts 30-24.
30? Whoa.
30, yeah. 30-30, yeah. I don't know, is 30 too much?
I think it depends if Mr. Taylor's out there or not.
Right. No, that is a good point. I don't know. It seems a little high, but I mean, at some point they've got to get out of these. Didn't Jacksonville? That was a higher scoring game. I don't know. Jacksonville's defense is terrible. 30-24 Colts. I'm torn. Really torn. I don't foresee myself changing my pick like I did with Jacksonville a few weeks back. And again, I'm not as confident as I was last week with Tennessee, but that's where I'm going. Colts
I would have
30.
changed mine last week if I knew Pittman was out there.
Well, Pittman and Downs, he was iffy too as the week moved along. All right, Eddie Garrison, as always, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everybody have a great week, great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday recapping Colts and Dolphins.